U.S. general warns Iraqi commander, stay away from Allied troops. One of President Bush's model schools files for bankruptcy. A man who stood tall in Congress for 30 years steps down. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. U.S. and Iraqi generals met today in northern Iraq, their first face-to-face talks on the plight of Kurdish refugees. The Iraqis were told to keep hands off the refugee camps that American troops are now setting up in Iraqi territory. Defense Department correspondent David Martin was there.
The meeting was delayed 6 hours, but finally the American general arrived under Marine Guard at an Iraqi customs house to work out arrangements for the establishment of Kurdish refugee camps in northern Iraq. The delay was caused not by Iraqi recalcitrants, but by the ban on Iraqi aircraft flights in the vicinity of the Kurds. After a 45-minute meeting, it was clear not all the arrangements had been made.
As is always the case at one of these initial meetings, there are some issues that remain to be worked, and those will be worked in due time.
One of the most important arrangements to be worked out is bringing supplies into Iraq by truck. Aircraft alone cannot deliver all that is needed to save the Kurds.
I don't see how we can resupply them for too long up in the mountains. The only way you're ever really going to get anything to them is by vehicle.
Some vehicles began the 200-mile journey to the border this morning after being offloaded from Marine amphibious ships. It's a long, slow journey, but not nearly so agonizing as the trek the Kurds will have to make down out of the mountains to the camps.
We will all probably have to offer very tangible assistance, physical assistance in helping them move down here.
Marines in war paint stood on alert today in case of an incident at the meeting. But these same forces will have to remain on alert to protect the relief camps from any attacks by the Iraqi army. Nothing that was said at today's meeting changed that. There is at least one question this meeting can't answer. How long will the U.S. military have to stay in Iraq in order to protect the Kurds from Saddam Hussein? David Martin, CBS News, Northern Iraq.
U.S. officers say 6 teams of Army Special Forces soldiers are in northern Iraq tonight. They're scouting for campsites and helping refugees when they can. Several miles inside Iraq, CBS News correspondent Alan Pizzi met up today with one of the Special Forces teams.
American Special Forces for the first time entered this part of Iraq today on a mission, as one put it, to win hearts and minds. They're doing it with a medical team, the first medical care these refugees have seen in weeks.
We estimate that somewhere between 25 to 50% of the children are suffering from malnutrition. And they all are suffering from diarrhea and dehydration.
The U.S. soldiers will bring in clean water and a lot of food. 3 of them had refugees helping mark out a flat area nearby.
We're building a helicopter landing zone. We already talked to the people about mines and stuff, you know, and they said there's nothing over here.
The Americans expect to move on deeper into Iraq as quickly as possible. When they do, they'll find a junkyard stretching for miles, vehicles abandoned by refugees as they fled over the mountains into Turkey. They're also going to meet soldiers like Rashid. He's been a guerrilla fighter for 2 years. Rashid is 12. If the Kurdish cause goes on as it has been, there'll probably be one when he's as old as his comrade in arms, if he lives that long. Refugees who opted to stay here rely on the guerrillas to keep them safe. From their mountain refuge, they can look down on Zakho, where Americans and Iraqis met today to discuss the refugees' future. The little refugee communities that dot the mountainsides here have already been well supplied with American combat rations. We would have been very hungry without this food, one man said. Our food was almost gone when the helicopters came. They took a risk by staying in Iraq, but many managed to keep their herds of goats, which means an occasional feast. And there's still some time to amuse themselves. 2 families totaling 16 people live in wrecked tourist buses, but they have clean water and there is none of the filth and human waste that threatens to cause epidemics in the camps over the mountains in Turkey. But they fear Saddam Hussein's forces. These people have heard that the Americans are coming and say they pray that it's true. If the Americans protect them, the refugees say, they'll stay here. If not, the women and children will eventually have to head for Turkey, and the men will stay here to fight. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, in the mountains of Iraq.
Most of what Western aid there is has been funneled to Kurds running for their lives into Turkey. Far greater numbers of Kurds have fled toward Iran, and they're getting little or no aid. Tom Fenton has that story.
The huge relief effort now underway totally ignores this woman. And up to 1.5 million Kurds who are struggling through rugged mountain passes to reach the safety of Iran. Their exodus is one of biblical proportions, nearly twice the number of refugees heading toward Turkey.
And yet they are receiving only a fraction of the support and international aid that Turkey has received to deal with the problem that the Turks face. It is, in my view, a disgrace.
The scale of the problem long ago overwhelmed Iran's meager resources. One doctor and 3 nurses care for 300,000 refugees in the small border town of Piranshar. They treat those who are not too ill. For others, there is nothing they can do. Only a trickle of aid has arrived, mostly from Europe. Iranian officials seem astounded by the lack of international assistance. So are the few Western officials who have actually visited the Iranian border.
Just the sheer human misery, I'm just appalled by it. And appalled that after 10 days, the international community hasn't responded better than this.
The Europeans pushed a reluctant President Bush, some say shamed him, into supporting the idea of safe havens for the Kurds along the border with Turkey, a NATO ally.
Much credit really goes to Prime Minister Major for seizing the initiative in the European community and calling for quick action.
But even the Europeans are reluctant to send aid to the refugees in Iran. The anti-Western trappings of the Islamic Revolution still offend many governments, even though Iran has been far more generous than the Turks in opening its borders to the refugees. But Iran can't cope by itself. 200 children a day are dying on its border with Iraq, while the outside world turns its back on them for political reasons. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
Iraq notified the UN today it still has 52 Scud missiles and 30 chemical warheads. Iraq is required to report its arms stockpiles to comply with the ceasefire. The U.S. State Department says it believes Iraq has more weapons than it says it does. Mikhail Gorbachev today became the first Soviet leader to visit South Korea. He and President Roh Tae-woo will hold formal talks tomorrow. Thousands of Korean students demonstrated near the meeting site and in cities around the country. Many of the protesters feel the Gorbachev visit will anger North Korea and hurt prospects for overall Korean unification. In England, the son of a hospital porter was enthroned today as the new Archbishop of Canterbury, Protestant Christian leader of the world's Anglicans.
Primate of all England and Metropolitan.
55-year-old George Carey vowed the church would speak out for the oppressed, the poor, and the starving millions of our planet. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, a school in trouble grades President Bush's new education plan. And a real-life Rocky hopes for his shot at the heavyweight crown.
Yes.
A lot of you insist on eating wheat thins and oat thins because they taste good. But the whole idea behind these crackers is that you can eat them without feeling guilty. That's why they're baked, not fried. I mean, eat them because they're delicious, and you miss the whole point.
Words of wisdom about brown rice from Kellogg's Kenmai. Mei Ling's grandfather is teaching her the secret to lifelong health. Live well, eat well. And for centuries, eating well has included brown rice. Kellogg's Kenmai rice bran gives you the goodness of brown rice in a light, crisp flake with a simple yet rich taste. Try Kenmai, the brown rice cereal, and take a step toward a tradition of lifelong health.
Too much of a good thing is a good thing. The new, incredibly comfortable Mercury Grand Marquis. All this on the quality of a Mercury.
Only Sears could put together a mechanic's tool set like this. 114 Craftsman tools, including 3 ratchets, all guaranteed forever, all under $100. Quantities are limited, so get to Sears, the home of America's craftsmen.
Federal health officials said today they will launch the most far-reaching study ever on women's health. The study will involve hundreds of thousands of American women with a special focus on the medical problems of older women. It's the day after President Bush put out his plan to improve the nation's schools. Today, a California school district that Mr. Bush once held up as a model of reform announced that it's out of money. John Blackstone reports.
Jessica! Scotty, come on down, let me check you out.
The crisis in American education was right at the front of Scotty Smith's mind this morning as she got her daughters ready for class. Her local school district is declaring bankruptcy today.
So we're turning in all books today because we don't have a full-time librarian. That's one of the cuts.
9-year-old Jessica has already been told by her teacher there will be no more music classes.
He told us about the schools being broke, and then he told us that he said they're going to fire some of the music teachers.
Lawyers for the Richmond School District filed a bankruptcy petition today. After months on the edge, the school district has finally run out of money. Without a loan from the state, schools will close before summer vacation begins. With reason, parents and teachers in the district listened closely to President Bush yesterday when he outlined his plans to revolutionize American education, calling for national standards, experimental schools, teacher salaries based on merit. But junior high principal Bob Cohn found little to give him comfort.
I want to say very clearly, and if Mr. Bush could hear it, is George, get real. You know, fund it, give us some money.
The money problems faced by the Richmond School District are more severe, but in many ways little different from those being faced by schools across the country. In Olympia, Washington today, teachers marched on the state capitol demanding more money be spent on schools and books. Near Albany, New York, students walked out of their high school today because 8 teachers were laid off after school budget cuts. But what the president did say about money yesterday may turn out to be the most controversial part of his education plan. Scotty Smith says the president's proposal to give federal funds to parents who send their children to private schools could mean better education, but only for a few.
You're going to have the cream of the crop of the public schools moving their children out of public school into private schools. But for the masses of people, they will still be stuck in substandard schools.
In the Richmond School District, teachers say there are many elements needed to provide a quality education. Only one of those is money. But that's the one, they say, that seems hardest to find. John Blackstone, CBS News, Richmond, California.
Politicians with guts and a sense of humor are rare as yellow-fronted bowerbirds. For 30 years, Congressman Morris Udall has been one. He's proved that one person can make a difference. He changed the political landscape, preserved the American wilderness, and today Mo Udall announced he's retiring for health reasons. Jerry Bowen looks at this man's legacy in and on the land.
Arizona Congressman Mo Udall is known as a Western original, a man who brought humor and grace and hard-scrabbled dedication to the American political stage.
You want to wave the crowd? Don't hide your face. That's good. One more time.
He ran hard for his party's presidential nomination in 1976, but his message was more often drowned out by his wit.
We're about to sing. So fellow Americans, the ship is going down.
He saw the human comedy and made fun of himself. He went in the barber shop in New Hampshire and said, "I'm Mo Udall and I'm running for president." And the barber said, "Yeah, we were just laughing about that." He told that story over and over again. That was my brother.
And Mo Udall fought hard for the environment, charming friends and foes alike. Millions of acres of Alaska, some of the world's most spectacular scenery, are safe because of him.
The crown jewels of Alaska are going to be here 100 years or 200 years from now for all of our people to enjoy.
He's given his best shot to doing what's right for Mother Earth for 30 solid years.
And over those 30 years, his colleagues truly came to revere him.
He is a gentleman with steel in his backbone and joy in his soul.
And Udall truly understood his fellow Democrats.
Let's avoid what we usually do. We get a firing squad together in the Democratic Party. We arrange it in a circle.
He didn't take himself seriously. In fact, he had this enormous and wonderful sense of humor. But he took issues seriously.
A long battle with Parkinson's disease and a fall last January have left the 68-year-old Udall hospitalized, unable to speak. But his legacy is clear.
the legacy of saying, reject restrictions, be bold, try to change the system.
The legacy of a Western original. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Stay with us now for something special. Eye on America. Tonight, hunger in our beloved country, a run on the nation's food banks.
See you later.
I thought my husband Dan was perfectly healthy, but the doctor said his cholesterol level was 218. So we changed to a healthier diet, including no cholesterol Mazola, America's leading corn oil.
In a clinical study, a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet, including Mazola, reduced cholesterol an average of 17%.
Did Dan's cholesterol come down?
You bet. 100% pure Mazola corn oil. Together, we're beating cholesterol.
Here we go. Now we're rolling. Time to get going. I'm gonna pack a little bag, throw in a couple things I can use. Wings or wheels or railroad steel. I just love the feel of these traveling shoes.
There's never been a better time or better travel values to go USA.
I have rich taste. I love the rich flavor of Sunsweet pitted prunes. Plump, tender, irresistibly sweet. I can almost taste them. Good idea. Only one prune tastes Sunsweet.
Poison ivy, insect bites, rashes. Too many choices.
You only need one. Cordaid.
Stop the itch and heal the rash with a brand doctors recommend most.
Present arms.
Cordaid, the only aid you need.
You mean to say he borrowed $200 million from an SNL and now we have to pay it off? That's exactly what we mean to say. 60 Minutes, Sunday.
Tonight, we complete the first week of our new Eye on America segment, our nightly report on important issues facing the country. Tonight, we focus on the growing ranks of America's hungry and the growing network of charity food banks straining to meet the need. Bruce Morton reports.
Thank God for small favors. There's a lot of hungry people out there.
In Providence, Rhode Island, a lot of hungry people come to Mary House to pick up bags of food. And Sister Frances and the others give away about 90 bags a day.
Hey. See you later.
Stacia, how are you, Stacia? You know Ann, too. She's gonna bag up food for you.
Demand has tripled in the past 2 years.
It makes me feel like I'm poor, you know, I can't afford.
Yep. Yep.
But I don't have no choice to do it to get the food that I need for my kid.
Stacia lives with her husband, her sister Ann, and their kids. They're on welfare, but are not faring well.
I say we have fresh fruits and vegetables about maybe 3 times a month, 2 or 3 times a month. I go for the bargains. That's in the store.
The times are hard, you know, and this is what has to be done.
Joanne Buxton works in this store just down the street from the food bank, but doesn't earn enough to live on. So she comes to Mary House, too.
People who have the money, who own all these companies that don't pay a just wage or need to increase the wage, need to come and see and let their hearts be opened. Come on in, honey. Thank you. What can we help you with today?
Mary House went into the food bank business in 1973. It was supposed to be short-term, stopgap. It's become a neighborhood institution.
I think it has always been considered short-term, but it's turning into, as you can see from this facility, a long-term, permanent operation.
Mary House gets its food from this warehouse, the Rhode Island Food Bank. Eileen Welly runs it. It opened 9 years ago.
These are the sisters from Macaulay House. They're serving in Providence, South Providence, about, what, 9,900 people a month?
In 1985, the warehouse served 150 charitable agencies. Today, it serves 464. Most of the food comes from food producers or grocery chains.
Lord our God, we ask that you be with us.
When CBS News first visited St. Augustine's Church in Cleveland, Ohio in the winter of 1984, it ran a pantry operation.
Thank you.
Now it feeds 3 hot meals a day, and Father McNulty says people who used to donate money now come for free food.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter where you go. In Tacoma, Washington, entire families get their meals from soup kitchens.
This one yours.
This giant warehouse in Los Angeles distributed 3.5 million pounds of food in 1981, 22 million pounds in 1990.
We have about 600 charitable agencies participating in the food bank, and together with them, we are feeding 245,000 people a week.
Food banks have become a growth industry in America. What's going on?
They are a larger reflection of the inhumanity of us as a nation to force people to, 20 million people in the country, to eat by getting handouts.
We thank God for this place.
And more, the customers are working poor.
They have to decide every month, do I pay my utility bill, do I pay my rent bill, or do I go without food? Normally, they go without food. That's why the soup kitchens and food banks are springing up, and it's getting worse.
Critics say the government should feed people who don't have enough.
The primary goal of food banking is to go out of business. And the only way we can do it is if the federal government does their job, which they're not doing.
Thank you. Bye, honey.
Yeah. God bless.
God bless. How many today?
The government thinks these voluntary efforts are a good thing, complementing federal programs like food stamps.
We know that at the local community level, they may see some people that we don't see, and they can meet those needs so that those folks don't, in fact, go hungry.
But the experts say there are 20 million of those folks, reflecting a growing gap in this country between rich and poor.
It isn't that we have fewer resources in America. It's that those resources are controlled by fewer and fewer people, while the middle class, and particularly the working class and the poor, are losing in the real value of the dollars that they take home, even as they're working harder and harder.
Hi, honey, come on in. It's humiliating for them. It's humiliating for us to have to see that need and respond to it.
Food banks, now as American as apple pie. Bruce Morton, CBS News, New York.
Wow, all those bags are gone.
A company can learn a lot in 125 years. Valvoline has. You learn in the lab, you learn on the road, you learn on the racetrack. As you learn, you make your product better. And better, and better. Today's Valvoline will keep your engine cleaner than ever before. And cleaner means more protection against engine wear. 125 years of quality. That's why people who know use Valvoline.
If you're counting calories, here's something you should know. An entire Kellogg's Special K breakfast, including cereal, fruit, skim milk, and coffee, actually has fewer calories than the leading diet shake. Fewer calories. And when you're dieting, isn't that what's important? Kellogg's Special K. Lose the fat.
This is the sound of Unisom, the sound of sleep. With Unisom, you hit your pillow and fall asleep fast. Tonight, you can sleep more soundly with Unisom, America's #1 sleep aid.
From the new Comiskey Park, Detroit takes on Chicago. Or see the Mets face Montreal. Baseball is back on CBS Saturday.
The hype fight. Boxing's heavyweight championship goes on the line tonight in Atlantic City. Champion Evander Holyfield meets former champ, young George the Thin Man Foreman, 14 years older, 50 pounds heavier. There's also drama in the undercard bout tonight, a Soviet heavyweight testing an unbeaten young American. Bob Fall has that story.
We're talking power here, raw, savage power.
When he fires a left hook, it comes out like a rocket. No one can teach it. It's just sheer, awesome, natural power.
I may not be as fast and as agile as some other people, but what I lack in that area, I feel like I make up in heart and determination.
Want more? Well, 22-year-old Tommy the Duke Morrison has already answered the bell in Tinseltown, right up there on the big screen, with none other than Rocky himself.
I realize I don't come from the same streets as you do, man, but I'm hungry, like you were. I've been fighting is all I got going in my life.
And in real life, he's gotten it going so well, obliterating 26 straight opponents in such frighteningly short order. What they're calling Tommy Morrison now, in a sport that is largely black, is boxing's great white hope.
Personally, I like to stay away from it. There's two reasons why. Number one, obviously, it's a race. You know, it's racist. Number two, name me a great white hope that's ever accomplished his goal. You know, there aren't any.
Then again, none of them went about it as rigorously or scientifically as Tommy Morrison has for 2 years, working out 9 hours every day, 6 days every week. Result, the butterball who once gorged himself on Twinkies has been transformed into a slab of rock-hard muscle.
Can you over-condition him? Can you train him too much physically? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we play the line every day.
The Oklahoma tyke whose mother gave him his first tattoo when he was only 9 knows he's still got some bad boxing habits and a short fuse, that he's no Rocky yet.
If you want something bad enough, then you're willing to pay the price to get it. And it's just being a champion, are you willing to pay that price?
Tonight, challenger Foreman gets $12 million, champion Holyfield $20 million, while Morrison, who fights in the same ring just minutes before they do, won't even make expenses. Tonight, the championship will belong to one of them. The 90s, though, could be his. Bob Fall, CBS News, Overland Park, Kansas.
And that's part of our world tonight. Bob Schieffer will have the news for you tomorrow. Dan Rather for the CBS Evening News. See you Monday. Good night.
In recent years, doctors have discovered a flaw in eggs. They're extremely high in cholesterol, and a diet high in cholesterol and fat can contribute to the risk of heart disease. Nutritionists at Fleischmann's have found a way to overcome this flaw with Fleischmann's Egg Beaters, the only one that's 99% real egg with zero cholesterol and zero saturated fat. Next time you'd love an egg, crack open a carton. Fleischmann's Egg Beaters, the great tasting egg without a flaw.
It's a comfort to know more people have taken Sominex over the past 30 years than any other sleep aid. Safe, simple Sominex.
All in favor of garden grip tools with the comfortable foam cushion handles. Garden Grip Lawn and Garden Tools by True Temper. We make yard work easy to handle.
I put off going to the doctor. But this burning stomach kept waking me up at night. Finally, I just went. I can imagine how relieved I was when my doctor said Mylanta. He said I had heartburn. And heartburn like mine needed a strong medicine.
Mylanta is strong medicine, strongly recommended. In fact, Mylanta is the antacid doctors recommend most.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Now available in cherry and cool mint cream flavors.
This is CBS.